This is Look West, a podcast from California's Assembly Democrats. Hi, I'm Emily Weber, and this is Look West. Welcome to part 2 of the Assembly Democratic Caucus New Members episodes. In the last episode, we met Mark Gonzalez, Rhodesia Ransom, Nick Schultz, John Harabedian, Dr. Lachey Sharp-Collins, and Anna Marie Avila Farias. In this episode, producer Don Andrews and I introduce you to 5 more. Hey, Don.
Hey, Emily.
What did you notice about the 17 new members of the Assembly Democratic Caucus?
I noticed that there's a lot of them. I noticed that they were very enthusiastic. They were here for orientation right after they'd gotten elected, so they were all very pumped up from their election victories. What did you notice about it?
I really liked hearing about their personal stories, why they got involved in politics, what excites them about advocacy. Just learning about them as people is really, I think, an important piece of this.
Well, let's meet 5 more of them.
Let's start with Chris Rogers. Don, you caught up with him in the state capitol rotunda right after their official welcome to the Assembly.
Welcome to the Assembly Democratic Caucus. The Look West listeners would love to know about you. Who are you and where's home?
Yeah, so Chris Rogers, Assembly District 2. We're the North Coast, Sonoma, Mendocino, Humboldt, Del Norte, and Trinity counties. I personally live in Santa Rosa with my wife, Sarah. She's a local nurse. We've got a cat, we got a dog, we have a 5-month-old baby. They are a handful, but really looking forward to getting to work up here in Sacramento.
Wow, and if I understand correctly, you're a North Coast born and raised kind of person, right?
That's right, and I actually had the opportunity to help represent the North Coast in the state assembly, in the state senate, and in Congress as a staff person for about a decade before I ran for local office myself.
Tell me a little bit, you mentioned that you have pets and a 5-month-old. That's a very hectic household, I imagine. Are you feeling a little overwhelmed by all the new things that you've got on your plate?
I'm just really excited to get to work. We have the 5-month-old who is still discovering the world. He's just started rolling over. We pinned a balloon to his foot and watched him kick the other day and watched him the excitement. It's a little similar to watching some of the new members come in, getting excited about the things that we get to work on.
Now, if I understand correctly, you're from local government or have served in local government as well. Did that inform you well for your new job here?
Absolutely. I've been on the Santa Rosa City Council for 8 years, spent 2 years as mayor. In my time on council, we've been through 4 wildfires, a pandemic, a drought, a flood, and an earthquake, which really highlights the importance of working together at the local, the state, and the federal level, and the way that you need to deliver for your community, not just on a partisan basis, but making sure that people can rebuild, that they have access to the resources that they need, a bunch of nonpartisan issues that I hope can help inform some of the policy that we do up here in Sacramento.
That is quite an introduction. I'm pun unintended, but like trial by fire.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the Tubbs fire in 2017. We've been rebuilding ever since. About 3,000 homes that were lost.
Right.
And you really do see the impact that you can have on people's lives in a positive way by being able to listen and deliver for folks.
Those local government challenges that you faced and must inform you for your job up here. What are the top priorities as you move to the state level when it comes to your community?
Yeah, absolutely. This district is both geographically diverse as well as has a very good diversity of issues. Some very poor areas, some very rich areas. You have coastal, you have inland, really following our water lines. We have the most indigenous tribes out of any district in the state. It really is going to be a lot to stick our teeth into. I'm really looking forward to working on issues around poverty, children's issues, climate change, health, transportation, but really it comes down to access and attention to areas that have felt neglected for a long time.
Do you have a favorite restaurant, a couple of favorite spots you can tell us about in your district?
Well, I'm always happy to find new ones as we explore the coast, but Russian River Brewing Company has been my go-to ever since I've been back in Santa Rosa. Natalie and Vinny do a great job, and Pliny the Younger and Pliny the Elder, 2 of the best beers in the world, so always happy to stop by for a pint.
Well, Chris is certainly ready to get to work on the issues facing the North Coast. Emily, one of the first people you caught up with is a Sacramento local.
Yeah, I talked with Maggie Krell in our studio as she waited to get her official portraits taken. I want to kind of get a little bit of a feel for what inspired you to run for office. I know that you have a very strong legal background and have been in public service for a while, but what inspired you to run for the Assembly?
I do. I've been, using the law in various ways for the past a little over 20 years. To help people, whether it was as chief legal counsel at Planned Parenthood, where I was tasked with providing access to reproductive health care, keeping our clinics open and fighting for choice. And then as a deputy attorney general and in other offices as a prosecutor, helping survivors of domestic violence, helping survivors of sex trafficking, prosecuting some of the worst criminals in the country. All of these things that I was doing, I was using the law. Mm-hmm. And so I look at this as an opportunity to really help craft laws to help people.
We know a little bit of your background is in human trafficking, and I know that you also wrote a book about that. Tell us a little bit more about that and what that kind of experience was like for you.
Yeah, the story that I wanted to tell was about a case we did against a website called Backpage.com, and it was really the hub. It was the largest sex trafficking operation in the world at the time. There were hundreds of cities advertising, thousands of people, and many of the people were girls and children under 18. There were victims as young as 12 in some of the cases that I worked. And the common denominator in every sex trafficking case that I prosecuted for about an 8-year period was that website, Backpage.com. So wow. Kamala Harris was Attorney General at the time, and this was something that she had been passionate about as well. Obviously, as a district attorney, she sponsored the first anti-trafficking law in California, and it was a new legal framework, and I was looking forward to testing that out. And we were building out our human trafficking work in California, and this case was a career case for me.
That's amazing. So with all that background and how much expertise that you've acquired over the past, throughout your entire career, are there any specific issue areas that you're looking forward to pursuing on the state level here in the legislature?
I mean, I'm definitely interested in continuing the work that I've done to help survivors of human trafficking, as well as access to health care, reproductive health care, but also mental health care, substance abuse treatment, of course, access to justice issues. And then, really listening. And what I'm hearing from folks is that everyday life is just getting harder and harder here. Everything at the store is too expensive. The milk, the eggs, the cheese, the gas at the gas station, definitely the housing. So every bill I look at, I'll really be looking at from the perspective of, is this going to increase, everyday costs for consumers?
Thank you for your time. It was great to sit down with you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Clearly, Assemblymember Krell will be a leading voice when it comes to women's rights. Dawn, you spoke with a new member from the Bay Area while he was waiting to record some content for his new social media channels.
Yeah, I talked with Patrick Ahrens about his life, riding the Capitol Corridor train and finding vegan restaurants in Sacramento.
Welcome to the Assembly Democratic Caucus. The Look West listeners would love to know a little bit about you. What's your name and where's home?
Well, thank you so much. My name is Patrick Ahrens, and I live in Silicon Valley in Sunnyvale, and my district includes Cupertino, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, and San Jose.
Do you have a favorite restaurant there in the Sunnyvale area?
Well, I'm vegan, so anything, trying to keep myself healthy, and, certainly campaign life is not always conducive to taking care of yourself and your health, and so, switching to being a vegan has really helped stay on track, keeping my body and mind right as we go into the arduous campaign, and as we frankly go into public life serving the constituents in Sacramento.
Yeah, this is not necessarily a vegan friendly place, but Sacramento does have some vegan options. Have you had an opportunity in your work for the legislature to learn about the vegan options here in Sacramento?
Not quite yet, but I'm looking forward to finding some healthy options around. I know that Sacramento is known for being a bit of a foodie town, farm-to-table town, so I'm looking forward to trying all of the good food that I'm hearing so much about.
You'll be traveling back and forth from your district up to Sacramento on a regular basis. Are you a commuter in a car? Do you like alternative transportation?
Well, we have the Capitol Corridor, so I'll be taking that as my commute to try and not only encourage public transportation, but really practice what we preach down in the district and to California. And so the Capitol Corridor is an amazing public transportation system, and it only takes about 3.5 hours to get to Sacramento. It will in some cases take that long, if not longer, depending on the Bay Area traffic. And
Most definitely, yeah.
And you're going to be able to get a lot done. There's food served on, there's drinks, you can make phone calls, you can watch, movies and shows and just update on whatever you need. So I'm really looking forward to getting a lot of work done on the train.
Look West listeners are familiar with the Capitol Corridor. An episode with Damon Connolly just a couple of months ago was all about alternative transportation, including the Capitol Corridor train, which he also rides from his place up in Marin County. Top priorities for Patrick Ahrens.
Well, I think my top priorities are what I've been hearing about and what the voters' top priorities have been. Hearing so much about inflation, cost of living. My district is one of the most expensive districts in the entire state of California to live. Everywhere is hurting. So I think we need to be addressing the issues that affect people the most. Getting more money in people's pockets, making sure that we are building more affordable housing throughout the state of California, but doing it in a way that's collaborative, that we're not siloing our conversations in government, that we're working where we can with the business community and with the nonprofit community, with every level of government, frankly, state, local, federal, to try and solve these issues. I think we have such a habit of creating barriers for one reason or another, but there's a lot of unintended consequences of doing that. So I really see the role of the Assembly, and as an Assembly member, to really assemble every level of government to try and chip in to solve these issues, instead of trying to tackle these big issues that we hear again and again on our own. I think the state just needs to figure out a way to partner more with different agencies in government and the private sector to get things done.
California has been a leader on many issues over the years. It's why we call the podcast Look West, is the rest of the country can look west to California's leadership. Is California a leader on the issues important to you?
Well, certainly. I think we always have been a leader, but we can't rest on our laurels. We need to show the California people, we need to show the rest of the country and the world, for that matter, that California can be a place to still look west too. And so, as much as we pride ourselves on that, we have to live up to those expectations.
It's really great to see former staffers, Patrick being one of them, moving on to becoming members now. Don, you also spoke with a pair of new members from Southern California.
That's right. I spoke with Jessica Caloza and Sade Elhawary. They told us all about the journeys that brought them to Sacramento. First, here's my chat with Jessica. We talk in the hall outside one of those orientation meetings that all the new members had to attend.
Welcome to the Assembly Democratic Caucus. The Look West listeners would like to know who you are, what's your name, and where's home?
Yeah, good morning. Jessica Caloza, proud to represent Assembly District 52, home of the Dodgers, Northeast LA, East LA, and Glendale.
Tell me a little bit about your district and do you have a favorite restaurant? Tell me a little bit more about your district.
Yeah, I have a beautiful district. It is, really diverse. It has a big working class community, immigrant community, has a big Latino, Filipino, Armenian community, and it's the first place my family and I called home when we immigrated here from the Philippines. So that's where I was born, in Quezon City, the youngest of 6 kids. And for me, running for office has been a complete joy because I've been able to, knock on doors, talk to my neighbors, ask them what their favorite place to eat is, what keeps them up at night, what they think about the Assembly, and how we should address those issues. And, for me, there's so many really good places to eat in the district. It depends on what neighborhood I'm in, but in Eagle Rock, I love going to the Oyster. It is a burger spot. And you can get pastrami there too. So I'm kind of a pizza, tacos, burgers kind of girl. So.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful district to be representing. Tell us what the top priorities are for you rolling into the State Assembly.
Yeah, so for me, top of mind, of course, is working with my colleagues on the budget. That is a top priority in order for us to implement any of these policies that address homelessness and housing and cost of living and economic development. We need to make sure we can afford to do that. So that's top priority for me. And of course, being in LA, homelessness and housing affordability is our top issue.
If I'm not mistaken, your background, you were with DOJ or are with DOJ?
Yeah, so...
how does that segue into your work here today? What have you learned from your previous employments that you're going to be able to bring to the Assembly to help out?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I campaigned on is really my experience, and that I would be ready to start on day one. I started off my career working for President Obama. I was knocking on doors as a community organizer in central rural Virginia, went then to work at the U.S. Department of Education, and then I went to work in the city of LA for about a decade. So I worked in the LA mayor's office. I was a public works commissioner, worked on potholes and street services and tree trimming, infrastructure projects. And in 2022, that's when I moved to the California Department of Justice to serve as a deputy chief of staff for our Attorney General Rob Bonta. And so all of those things are going to be really important for me to be able to look at issues from a federal funding perspective, from a statewide enforcement perspective, and also in a local impact perspective. Those are all the things that really ground me in how I look at policy, how I'm going to shape policy.
So welcome to the Assembly once again. Do you know where your office is? Have you found everything so far?
I think those are the things that we learned today, so I'm so excited to hear about what my colleagues and I have in store, and the speaker and his team have been doing a great job at freshman orientation, so I'm excited for class of 2024.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
A short time after I talked with Jessica, I talked with Sade when she stopped by the DCO studios where we record many of the Look West podcasts.
So I am a foster mom to a young woman. She's 22 now. I met her when she was 15 years old. I'm an educator and an organizer, so I spent a lot of time throughout my career with young people. And I met her through the organization I worked at, Community Coalition. And unfortunately, when she was 17, she was removed from her home, and I became her foster mom because I stepped up at a time that was really tough. The system sometimes can be harsh, and so they tried to place her really far away from home, far away from her high school, and I wanted to make sure she went to college and wasn't disrupted in her life.
Tell us a little bit about your district. You said South Central LA. Is that what you represent as well?
Yeah, so South Central Los Angeles, downtown as well, Skid Row, which is a really tough area, as we know, with our housing crisis, and then a little bit of Watts as well. So.
And tell us what's your favorite place to hang out there in the district.
Okay, so.
Do you have a favorite coffee shop?
Okay, so I do. So there's a place called South LA Cafe, an incredible coffee shop in the district. They have a few different locations now, and one of their prime locations is at the Natural History Museum, which is part of the Exposition Park area. So that includes what's going to be the new Lucas Museum, the Rose Garden, Exposition Park includes the California Science Center, the Endeavor Space Shuttle, as well as some just really beautiful spaces. And then, I will say my favorite restaurant is a restaurant called Holbox. Holbox, in case anyone's in LA. It's inside of Mercado La Paloma. It's one of the first Michelin star restaurants in South Central Los Angeles. It's this incredible seafood, like gourmet kind of Mexican restaurant inside of this really cool kind of cafeteria setting, which is just so delicious. Like I'm watering at the mouth just talking about it.
and I'm hoping that they send me on assignment to come down.
Yes, please. I have to. I'd love to.
So you mentioned that you're a foster parent. That's a full-time job all by itself.
Oh,
Tell
yes.
us a little bit else about your background that prepped you and informed you to be a state assembly member.
I mentioned that I worked at this organization. So in Los Angeles, it's Community Coalition, but we call it COCO. It was founded by now Mayor Karen Bass over 35 years ago. And it's really focused on making improvements in the community, really investing in the community themselves, developing their leadership to make changes. And so I worked as a youth organizer at the high schools in South Central, Fremont High School, Manual Arts High School. And I just loved seeing young people who really wanted to do something and helping them really develop the skills to go talk to the school board and say, we demand better policies, we demand more funding, and then actually seeing those things come to fruition. Building a wellness center at their high school, a community garden, it was just so powerful. And I think that was a huge part of what helped me get here. I'm also an educator. I mentioned I taught high school history. I actually founded a school and from the ground up, the Nelson Mandela School for Social Justice, and loved the work that I did with those young people.
And now, what will be the top priorities for you when you sit down in your chair there on the green carpet?
number one is our housing crisis. I think it needs to be all of our first priorities. And if there's anything I can do to bring all of us together to say, let's focus on housing together, not piecemeal solutions, but really be thoughtful around how we tackle this crisis as an entire legislature. In addition, I really care about the ways in which mental health impacts our communities. We see how it impacts our unhoused folks who don't have the support and services. Unfortunately, my cousin passed away recently from a fentanyl overdose. And I think so much of it is because our communities, we don't learn to cope with so much of what we experience, the traumas in our lives and things like that. And so the ways in which we have treatment and services for both mental health as well as substance abuse is really important to me. And lastly, investing in our future generations.
Thank you very much, Look West. Appreciate you stopping by and visiting with us.
Absolutely.
And hope that we get a chance to talk to you during your time here in the legislature.
Yes, so glad to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, that's the second batch from the 2025 freshman class of the Assembly Democratic Caucus. We'll meet 5 more of them in the next episode, coming out next Thursday. Thanks to all of the members. Thanks to producer Don Andrews, and thank you for listening. I'm Emily Weber, and this was Look West.
The Look West podcast is produced by the DCO Pod Squad for the California Assembly Democrats. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode. When you think of Californian politics, remember to look west.